Here to talk more about Week 17 of the football and fantasy football season, our friends from fantasyfootballstarters.com, Jeff Cortini and Russ Bliss. Good morning to you, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Wow, it's the end of the season.
Who would have thought, huh?
Yeah, it kind of flew by, huh?
Yeah, it did, especially if you're following fantasy football. You know, we talked, Javier, last week that most of the championships were going on, but there are still some championships going on this week. And the bad news is a lot of starters are not playing because they don't have anything to play for.
Yeah, I was asking you earlier, how do you navigate who's starting, who's not, who's going to get benched, you know, halfway through the game, depending on the outcome? How do you navigate through that?
Oh, man, a lot of waiver wire information, huh, Russ? We've been looking at it, and actually this is one of the things we talked about earlier in the season, right? Teams like the Indianapolis Colts, the San Diego Chargers, the Cincinnati Bengals. So if you have Carson Palmer, he may get pulled. Phillip Rivers, probably not going to play. Same thing Peyton Manning showed us last week, right? He didn't play at all. Then there are a couple of teams that do have something to play for, but that's why it's important to know the rules of your league. If you know the rules of your league, then you're going to know when the championship week is, and then you've got to pay attention. Hey, if my teams are doing well, the players that I have, I better be paying attention to the waiver wire and picking up a player like Alex Smith, right?
Right.
Russ, to back you up.
And when you talk about Peyton Manning, well, oh, that broke a lot of hearts last week because
Yeah,
he's
it
been
did.
playing some good football and they sat him.
Yeah, it did.
What about the folks who want to continue playing fantasy football?
Well, you can continue playing fantasy football all throughout your NFL playoffs. There's websites now specifically set up so that way you can do that. One of the ways that I've actually created back 10 years ago in the days of pen and paper was
What is that?
Yeah. Russ's Fantasy Football League.
for the playoffs, I have every team pick 4 quarterbacks, 5 running backs, 5 wide receivers, 4 tight ends, 4 kickers, 4 defenses. And after every round of the playoffs, you have to drop 1 player at every position. So that way, by the time you get to the Super Bowl, you've got 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 kicker, 1 defense. And this is a combination of being able to pick who's going to go the furthest in the playoffs, picking who's going to actually make it to the Super Bowl. So that way, you've got a full team. You've got 2 players that are actually active that week that you can choose from for your fantasy playoffs.
It's like a survivor league, right? So if you pick that player, let's say you play Tom Brady this week, okay, you can't play him again, right? Because, or you continue to drop these players, so you want to drop the right players. So it all goes about, you still got to pay attention to stats, you got to pay attention to who's playing and who's not. And like on a weekend like this, it can be real frustrating.
Voting someone off the island.
That's right, exactly.
This whole scenario,
this
scenario is on your website, right?
Absolutely.
So you can break it all down. All right, let's move forward to the Cardinals-Packers game. There's a possibility that they could play the Packers this week and then again next week.
Oh, yeah, and you know, that's another thing. They're going to be paying attention to the early game with the Vikes and the Giants. If the Giants beat the Vikings, then the Cardinals have something to play for, and that's going to be pretty darn exciting. A lot of people are going to be watching those early games, Javier. The other thing you want to make sure is that going into the playoffs, who are they going to start? They've got to make sure that they rest some of their players, right? And there's some of the scenarios right now on the screen.
Yeah, the Cardinals can actually be the number 2 seed if Minnesota and Philadelphia both lose and the Cardinals win. They become the number 3 seed if Minnesota wins and Philadelphia loses, or they can be the number 4 seed if Minnesota and Philadelphia win, or if the Cardinals lose to Green Bay. They're automatically locked in there.
Here's the big question. How do my Cowboys get to Glendale?
It could happen. There's a scenario there, right, Russ, where they could end up playing the Cowboys, I believe, too.
Yes, if the Cowboys beat the Philadelphia Eagles, the Cowboys become the number 4 seed in the NFC. They'll end up as one of the home teams for the first round of the playoffs. If the Cardinals and the Cowboys both end up advancing, beating those 1 and 2 seeds, they would end up playing back here.
That's right.
You said if. That's a win.
That's a big
win. That's a win.
That's right.
What about the game today? You know, it's hard to beat a team twice, you know, once every week. How do they focus this week and then, I guess, try to kind of throw the other team off in the event they play them next week?
Well, you know, what they got to do is they got to play real vanilla, right? They're not going to show the Packers anything, and vice versa. Nobody wants to show anything of what they're going to do. They're going to use a lot of base packages. They're going to play a lot of plays that people have already seen. They do not want to game plan or show them anything that they're going to play against. And there's got to be intensity there, right, Javier? These guys want to go out and play, get a feel for it. The coaches are going to have to watch it closely and then pull them and let some of the backups get in there and get some playing time.
It's chestnut checkers.
We're predicting, by the way, we are predicting a 24-20 Packer victory, believe it or not, this week.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we think the Cardinals are probably going to rest a few more players.
Because Russ looked at you like, I'm not on that ship. You
better be.
Well, it all depends as to what happens with that early game. Minnesota, New York Giants really are the key to what the Cardinals are going to do. If the Giants win, Cardinals are going to go all out to win this game against Green Bay. If the Giants lose, then the Cardinals probably going to end up resting their starters after the first quarter and a half.
A lot of TV to be watched today.
Yes.
That's for sure. All right. What about a free offer?
Hey, we did it every weekend starting in August. We're going to do it all the way through. Anybody that watches this segment, and all they have to do is go to fantasyfootballstarters.com, register only, and then email Jeff at fantasyfootballstarters.com. Javier, I'll upgrade them to our Power Player Package, $9.95 value. They'll get player alerts. They can use our mock draft software in the offseason. They can check out Russ's blog. They can email Russ questions like thousands of people do every Saturday and Sunday morning, all free, upgraded just for watching this segment.
And since we're headed toward the playoffs, I asked you, who do you got to win it all?
Go ahead, Russ. Win it all. Who do you got?
If I had to pick one, I'd take the Indianapolis Colts. I really think the Colts are just the best team overall.
Oh, New Orleans Saints. New Orleans is a tough team. They got a couple of losses. They're going to come back strong. They got home field advantage all the way throughout. Who wants to go and play those guys in a dome? I don't think so.
All right. You switched that on me. A couple minutes ago, you said Philly. Yeah.
That's right. I'm changing by the second here.
Wavering.
That's
flip-flopping
right.
here, folks. Thank you very much. Of course, you can find all that information and much more on fantasyfootballstarters.com. Well,